is Pawan Jaiswal. Welcome back to Spring series. In this video, we'll see Spring IoC Part 2, in which we'll make use of Constructor for initializing literals of Pojo, and even in this video, we'll see the different scopes of a bean. As mentioned in an earlier video, we had a Spring First Step application which was configured using application context.xml. It means a configuration was done using XML file. Then we had a student Pojo, where we had a getter setter for roll number and name. And then in main app, we had application context. We got a bean having an ID student. We instantiated student class, and then we printed the student. As you have seen in application context, we had used property tag, which is a subtag of bean, in order to initialize the properties of that Pojo. Now in this example, we'll make use of constructor for the same purpose. So I am commenting this section timely. Let's add a multi-attribute constructor in this student. So insert code, right click, insert code, add constructor. There is constructor here. Select both the fields and generate. We got a constructor. Now let's run this code. Let's get to know what really happens when I do it. Okay, I'm sorry. This method is not having, the class is not having main method. Let's go to Spring main app, run file. Okay, we got an exception. I was expecting that. What it is saying that no default constructor found in this. Okay, let's add default constructor. Let's see whether it really works in that case or not. So say public student default constructor. We just added. Okay, student S need to be capital. Control S. Now I'm running again. Run file. Now it has been run, but with null things. Well, we are not expecting this thing, right? Can you guess why it has happened? Yeah, you're right. We had configured the XML file, but we did not mention how to create a bean for a student. So let's get into that XML file now. Now, how do we do that? There is a constructor argument tag like this. Okay. It takes two values. It has got multiple sub attributes. Let's use value right now. With value, say Pawan, and another constructor argument with value, say 102. Now, do you think it would run now? Let's try it. Okay, run file. Yeah, it worked. It means this is the another way in which you can really initialize the bean properties using constructor argument. So it has taken an argument called value, which would initialize the value Pawan to a string name and 102 to integer roll number. Now the question in your mind, how it is making the mapping? Now it goes for positional mapping. If you see this constructor carefully, it has got first argument of type string and second of type integer. So Spring is having intelligence. In background, it mapped this with string and this with integer. Can you make it manually? Of course, you can even make it. There is a type attribute. If you say here java.lang.string, so this would map to string. As string is a class, you must have to use the complete path. As integer is just normal primitive, so you just have to mention int. So I made those two changes and I'm running it again. Yeah, it worked. You may just change the value if you want, maybe say 104 and rerun it. Run file. It worked, right? So this is the another way in which you have configured your bean using constructor argument tag. Now you might be thinking, why are we doing these things in XML when same thing would have been happened here? Creating a constructor here of student and then passing it here. Now the problem is what in this case? Imagine that you have done that constructor creation here, and 6 months down the line you wanted to change the constructor facility of your Bean. So you must have to go to your source code, you must have to change these statements of line, and then you must have to compile and run it. So these things are getting involved there. If you wanted to get rid out of these things, you can go and refer an XML file to be configured, which is easily configured with no compilation required. So whenever if changes need to be done, you just have to make those changes into the XML file, not into the source code. So you are actually making the loosely coupled things. You are actually delegating the responsibility of object creation to Spring. You haven't kept it with yourself. That's the beauty of the Spring IoC. Fair enough. Now another point in this video, we were talking about scope. Each bean in Spring has got 3 scopes. Many scopes are there. In this video, we'll touch 2 scopes. First is singleton, second is prototype. There are few more like session, global, or page. Application. Now in this video, we'll talk about singleton and prototype. Now what do you mean by singleton? As name suggests, it means you are going to have only one instance of that class throughout the application. And in case of prototype, whenever object creation would happen, it would refer to the new object every time. So in case of prototype, it would be multiple instances created. In case of singleton, there would be instances which is referring to the earlier created instance. Now how to define a scope of a bean? In bean, if you press Ctrl space bar and if you type scope here, you can see a scope is a sub attribute of a bean tag. In scope, you can mention what value you like to have. Do you wish to have singleton or you wish to have prototype? So if I mention here singleton, okay, and now if I again create another attribute here, another object of singleton, this student, say student, say student 2, using the same stuff. Now you got 2 things, right? If I say student equals to student 2, being a singleton, student 2 must need to point to the same reference which student is passing. Student is referring. If it is referring to the different thing, it would have a different hash code altogether. Am I right? Now in this case, we are expecting same hash code to be there, and then we are saying that scope is singleton. Otherwise, you'll say that scope is not singleton. Okay, let's try this. Yes, you got it, right? It means when we created student 2, it was not the new entry altogether. It was the instance, but it was referring to this memory address only. That's what this condition got satisfied, and then it has been proved that we are making it of singleton scope. Now in case of prototype scope, you just have to change this thing with prototype. And now being a prototype, as I said, it would create new instances every time. It would not point to the same reference. Now it should print this statement that it is not singleton. Or let's change this now. Scope is prototype. You can mention here. Prototype. Right? Let's run this. Fair enough. We got scope is prototype. So there are the certain requirements in your application where you need to stick with singleton scope, or sometimes you need to stick with prototype scope. So depending on that, you can really refer this thing, scope attribute of bean tag. So in this video, we have seen that how to make use of a constructor argument for initializing the data to constructor of your Pojo, like this. And then we have even seen that how to have the different scopes of a bean by mentioning the scope attribute. I hope you like this video. For further videos, you can subscribe my channel on YouTube, Pawan Jaiswal Spring Series, or you can find out the material on my website, pawanjaiswal.com. Thank you so much for watching it. Stay tuned. Bye.